everybody, this is Meghan Pelley with All City Real Estate and the MJP Realty team. And I want to chat with you today about AI because that's what everybody's talking about. It's all a buzz. And it seems like this is the moment where we'll go back in time and look at what our projections were for AI and see whether or not we hit the mark or we didn't. I mean, if you think about the advent of the internet and the way it worked through the generations and how it created this unbelievable information age that we are in. And it also created billionaires abound when there weren't previously very many. So AI is sure to change all of that going forward for the better or the worse. So what sparked this whole conversation was I was at a brunch and I met with somebody who was a corporate recruiter, which a lot of people have difficulty deciding that they want to use a corporate recruiter because they can be very expensive. But if you're in the business of hiring, you know that the right hire will take your business to the next level, or you're going to lose a lot of money on the wrong hire. And so getting it right is key. And a good corporate recruiter can help you do that. And so we had a conversation about the value proposition of what it means to be a good corporate recruiter. And that tied into, what do you do for a living? And I told him I sell real estate and, some similar overlaps there, right? So then fast forward a few hours later, and there's a separate conversation with that same person and somebody else who's kind of half lightheartedly joking about, I would like to buy your house. And he was saying he was probably going to sell his house soon. And he said, well, let's get on ChatGPT and write up a contract now. And I'm in earshot of this, sitting next to an attorney thinking, is that really the direction we're going in? Like, I suppose it could be, but what does the landscape look like going forward? I mean, how do these jobs that are relationship-based and knowledge-based, how do they work in sync with AI? And it really had me thinking about it. And I think that AI is kind of like a hammer. You can use it to build a house, or you could use it to bash someone's face in. Like, it just depends on what you want to do with it, right? And so I think AI is either going to be our best friend that's going to give us a lot of leverage and flexibility and allow us to put out more outputs and be more productive, or for some people, it can replace your job. And so I do think that if you're the employee that is looking at the clock ready to leave at 5 o'clock and you do the bare minimum for what is required of your job, well, you should be really fucking scared right now. I know I would be, because there are a whole lot of jobs out there where corporate America is going to look and say, I don't need this person anymore. They cost me X amount of thousands of dollars per year, and I can generate 90% or more of their job using AI. So I do think that AI, as it becomes more prolific, will make a larger divide between the have and the have-nots. And so we're already kind of steering in that general direction. I started using AI. I was a really early adopter, not because I'm special, but I had a really close friend who was really into technology. And when it came out in November of, I think it was 2021, he said to me, are you using AI to write your real estate descriptions? And I was like, no, what's that? And so he showed it to me and I was like, this is brilliant. Because prior to that, I had taken a class and I had some creative writing instruction, and I would write my descriptions based on these outlines and keywords to use and things like that. And what would take me a little bit of time was very instantaneous. But as it's become more and more commonly used, it's really become very diluted. And I think that as a society, we are craving the authenticity that comes with people being a little less polished and a little more real. And I think we smell the fakeness of it and we're a little resistant to it. So I also think that AI is incredibly smart, and so it's just going to continue to get better, and it's going to be harder and harder to determine what is an actual voice. And so I think that those are all things that we need to keep our fingers on. I've heard a lot recently about the environmental aspects of AI, and I am very curious to see how that plays out. And for those that are not believers in climate change, I'm not here to push a political agenda. I would say talk to your insurance agent and see if they think that climate change is real, because all the ones that I deal with definitely do. And so climate change and the resources that are required to make AI more sustainable and usable, they're big. And so those are all things to think about. I also keep thinking about, like, if you could go back in time when the internet started and know what you know now, what would you have invested in? How could you leverage that? And so the internet was like nothing before, and so we didn't have anything to gauge it on. But AI is like a close cousin of the internet, right? And so where are the investment opportunities for AI? In terms of investment, who's making the chips? Where are they coming from? What's the next big thing? I had heard some research about some AI technology for children that was coming out of China, that if you give it long enough, will tell your kid how to find the matches and strike them. So, like, what safeguards do you need to have in place to make sure that you and the people that are using it within your household are staying safe? So I have a lot of just random thoughts about it, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the subject. I do think that I think that AI also is kind of making people a little dumber. It's taking away the ability to have a cohesive thought and think it through and flesh it out. And so, kind of back to that hammer analogy, like, it can be an excellent tool, but if you're not using it properly, then I think that there's a real dilution to, flexing that mental muscle, right? So how do I use AI? Well, I will say that it took me a really long time to find my voice as a person. And I'm not about to give it up to a robot. I'm just not going to do it. And so I think the whole point of social media was to capture your attention. And I think the whole point of AI is to capture your attachment. And I'll admit that I even started to fall into it, where I would consult with chat about all kinds of things, personal, professional, and otherwise. And it always wants to give you more. So it wants to keep you engaged on the platform. And I started to wonder, why? Why do you want to continuously have this conversation with me? And much like an exchange at a cocktail party, I felt inclined to, like, sure, I want to hear more. Sure, I want to learn more. And then at some point I started to wonder, well, why can't you just give me the answer I'm looking for and leave it at that? What's that about? So I thought that was kind of strange as I started to think through it a little bit more. Even my youngest kid will ask me, he's little, and he'll ask me things like, Mom, can I talk to ChatGPT and ask it questions? And at first, a few months ago, I would have said, yeah, absolutely. Sure, why not? He's got like this cool Australian voice. He's very soothing to talk to. But now I'm like, no, I don't think I want you to do that. And so I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm still kind of peeling back the onion on all that. How do I use AI? So what I like to do, I still use it to kind of give me leverage and help me move a little bit faster through some of the things that I need to do. I'm not excited about the image usage of most AI products. I think there's a lot of room to grow on that front, but I do use it when I am thinking through content. But I use that as like a launching pad. I don't use that. I don't put a prompt into chat for a real estate description or a blog topic or an email newsletter and then copy and paste it. So if you follow any of my stuff, or if you're reading anything that I post, that is me posting most of the time. And unless it comes from another source, like our website will post a couple things without my doing. It's part of our package. Sorry. Now you know what's happening behind the veil. But 90% of what goes out there is actually me. And I might ask it for a topic of conversation, but I'm not using it exclusively to copy and paste what it gives me. I'm also using it to give myself some launchpad ideas on rules, changes, laws, but it doesn't mean I don't have consultations with my attorney. In fact, I think what it does is it gives me better finite points to make when I do speak to my attorneys. And so I'm using it in that regard to make our conversation more robust, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to use my attorney. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to consult with my physician. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't consult with a realtor. Like, I think that the whole scare tactic that AI is going to take over our jobs is very valid, but I also think that that's up to us. That is up to us as humanity, how we show up for people. You know, if I go to see somebody and we have some kind of relationship and I'm going to utilize them for professional service or buy a widget from them or whatever, I don't want a discount. And I think a lot of people are under the assumption like, oh, well, we're friends, and so I should get some kind of deal cut here. And the way I see it is I am your friend and I want the best for you and your family. And you and your family have a right to make a living. And I want to show my support for that by paying you what you're worth, or paying for this widget what it's worth, so that you can profit. And so I think if we kind of walk into this new era with this idea behind us that I want to support my community. I want to support my friends that are attorneys that went to school for a very long time for that degree. I want to support my friends that are physicians that went to school for a very long time to support that, to get that degree. And I don't want to have conversations about why I'm worth what I'm worth. I'm going to show that through my actions all day long. And that's something I think that AI cannot replace for people. And as long as we are at the forefront of making these commitments to ourselves and how we decide to use it, and really thinking through all of these things instead of just mindlessly popping on to whatever your preferred method is, whether it's Grok or Chat or Gemini or whatever, think through, like, is this something I could have thought through on my own? Is it something that requires me putting it into this platform? Is the information that I'm receiving correct? How would I know it's correct? So without the experience, knowledge, and resources that I come with as an actual human being. So I think there's a lot to think about with AI going forward. I'm very curious to see how it all shakes out. And I am excited for what the future holds. And I think we all need to remind ourselves that we are in charge of the future that we design for ourselves. And if you don't design it for yourself, someone else will design it for you. Those are my thoughts about AI. I would love to know what you think about it. I would love to know if you have, how you're using it in your day-to-day life, what your thoughts are about real estate and the advent of AI and how you're seeing these changes. They're so rapid. Do you feel like it's making people communicate directly to you as far as a product or service that you want to know more about? Or do you feel like it's just people being sloppy and just like throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall? So let me know what your thoughts are. Have a great day.